Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and this is going to be the best Rubick support build for patch 7.37e. So for the starting items, we have 2 sets of tangos, a blood grenade, observer ward, sentry ward, starting with the magic stick, and 2 branches. Now you can mix this up a little bit. Usually you want to start with these 2 sets of tangos because this hero loves to trade with magic damage, with Fade Bolt, and the damage reduction. With the right click that you have a decent range and attack speed, it's great to just start with that extra regen so you can get a bunch of right clicks in and just keep constantly trading to give yourself, but also your laning partner, your core, a good lane. Everyone's starting with magic stick these days. That's pretty obvious and straightforward. Blood grenade is just great for harassing, for getting in that extra bit of damage and slow when you go for first blood at the rune or other things like that. And then you always want to start with a sentry ward as a support, just whether it's 5 position or 4 position. And then these days, people are usually picking up the observer ward on mid and 4 position. And for the most part, this hero is played in the 4 position. Sometimes it's played 5. It's kind of either or, but it's most popular as a 4. That's why you're going to get the obs ward. You can also, if you want, go for some mangoes for that extra mana if you want, instead of maybe a blood grenade or maybe, you know, an iron branch and stuff like that. You can mix it up a little bit there, but this is pretty standard. You can go this every game, and there's really no problem with that. Then from there, we're going to finish out the wand, just like with every single hero pretty much in this patch, and then we're going to go for arcane boots. You're going to go for arcane boots every single time. The tranquil boots don't really help you too much. You could potentially go for that. Supports always have a choice, just like cores kind of always have a choice between treads and phase, but there are specific instances like on Rubick where you're spamming spells so much, your hero is really all about spamming spells, so arcane boots is a must for this hero. It just every single time, it's not really a question. Then in terms of core items, we have Aether Lens. You're going to be getting this every single game. It is a bit of a luxury item, I'd say, because there isn't any defensive capability, but because it increases the range of all of your spells and any spell that you steal, I will say it does have a sort of pseudo, defensive capability, because you can then be further back from the team fight and not be in danger as much, because obviously you have this cast range and then you have the cast range from Arcane Supremacy, which means you can hide in the trees, you can be super far back and still steal spells, still cast spells, still lift people, use Fade Bolt, all that kind of stuff from a really, really safe distance when you get this. So even though it is a little bit of a luxury item, you're going to get it pretty much every single game. Really no question about that. And then you're going to get Blink Dagger as another kind of luxury item for positioning, because it's great to be able to blink away. It's great to be able to blink into position to steal the perfect spell, all that kind of stuff. It's great to have both of these as kind of core luxury items. And then finally, we have Ag's Shard, which is something you hopefully will get for free. You don't really want to be buying it on this hero. Some supports, it's like, okay, if you don't get it for free, you desperately need it. You need to get it as soon as possible. That's not really the case for this hero. Yes, it's a good save. It can be good in situations, but you don't really want to be spending that 1,400 gold on the Ag's Shard. And then obviously you have the general support items, Glimmer Cape, Force Staff, the other support items that you can get. I will say that you sometimes want to get a Glimmer, sometimes a Force Staff, sometimes even both, before you get Aether Lens or Blink Dagger, because it's just one of those games that you are squishy, you're going to get jumped on, you're going to get killed, you need these items to survive, and surviving is extremely important, because if you can manage to escape getting ganked or killed or initiated on the fight or targeted, then you're going to have more impact. And so sometimes it's really important to have these items first before these luxury items. Then in terms of late game items, you're going to want to buy Agnum Scepter every single game as a late game item. It is so good on the hero. It just doubles your output in fights, because obviously now you have 2 spells that you can steal, and you don't have to worry as much if you have a big ultimate about, erasing that with a new spell. Now you can just steal another spell, without really thinking about it, and just get another good nuke or a stun or something like that and have even more impact in the fight. Obviously, if you don't have a big ultimate to steal, you can just constantly be stealing so many good spells with this Ag Scepter. So that's really something you're going to get every single game. And then from there, it's just pure luxury. Octarine Core, another great one for a spellcaster, constantly spamming a ton of spells. Aeon Disc, great for a support. When you get targeted, it makes you even tankier, which is awesome. And then to round it out with a Refresher Orb, just to have even more spells that you're constantly being annoying with spamming. If you get a big ultimate, now you have 2 of those that you get from the enemy when you steal it. It's just amazing to have these items later in the game. If you get to this point, you're kind of a beast. It's like 60 minutes plus, and your impact should be through the roof if you're a good Rubick player. Then lastly, in terms of situational items, we can get Pavis, we can get Solar Crest. that is potentially viable on the hero, but you'd rather have these other spellcasting centric items, not really the shield. It's not really what the hero is about. It's not about, shielding or buffing up allies or healing. That's not really the focus, but you can potentially get it. A lot of supports can get it. I just wouldn't focus on that too much. Then Yules and Wind Waker, that's great in a lot of different matchups, but it's not like core Glimmer Cape 4-staff support items because it's not as good of a defensive item. I probably would only buy this in certain matchups against, like, let's say Axe or Ursa or other heroes where Yules is just really, really good offensively, and then it adds that extra defensive capability as well, especially when you can upgrade it into Wind Waker later. Then we have Tranquil Boots, Drums, and then Boots of Bearing. You could potentially go for this, but you're just going to need Arcane Boots in pretty much every game, so I almost would never go for this, but it is an option maybe later on in the game and you don't need mana anymore. Maybe you could go for this, but I really would not consider that on this hero for the most part, but it is an option, just like Solar Crest is an option. Then Guardian Greaves, you can actually use this to round out your Arcane Boots later on in the game. But again, that's one that's a little bit weird because you'd rather spend money on these other items. And the mech and the Arcane Boots isn't that great, or the Arcane Boots into Guardian Greaves isn't that great later on. Like if you're getting this at 50, 60 minutes, the impact is rather minimal. So I'd almost rather sell my Arcane Boots if I don't have mana problems at that point, and then get Boots of Travel late into the game if I feel like I need to upgrade my boots in some way to have more impact, because you're really only going to be doing this at 50, 60 plus minutes anyway, so that's when Boots of Travel can really be important in the game in general. Then we have BKB, and this is situational because if you are going to be stealing a lot of channeling spells, let's say Black Hole or CM Alt or something like that, pairing that with a BKB is extremely good. So any hero that likes to have BKB when they're channeling, that is good for you to have then when you're stealing that. So that's kind of the combo there and the consideration for when you buy BKB on this hero. Lincoln's obviously good for blocking Doom, even putting it on allies. That can be really good in a lot of situations. Same thing with Lotus Orb for the Dispel and putting it on allies to buff them up. You can even go Dagon in a lot of games, but that's obviously offensive. It's more of just like a super giga luxury damage item that I'm not going to go in many games. Maybe if you were like playing mid Rubick, you could go it, I guess, but it's not the best. It's just a possibility people will go it. Just as support, like you'd get it as like an 8th item, I would say. It's like super, super luxury late game. Then Scythe, you could get this in more games than you would think. It's just that Lockdown is not something you're going to be getting from Scythe like innately that you would want to forego another item. Like you'd rather get Octarine Core, obviously Ags, even Refresher, because you're going to be more likely than not stealing stuns than you are just needing the Hex. But sometimes you just need a Hex, and it's good to get it on this hero as a super late game item. That is a possibility. You can go Shivas. It's really more of a core item these days, but it is a possibility. But you're not really going to be in the fight that much, so that's why you don't get it very much. But if you need armor and no one's buying Shivas, you can potentially buy it. Heaven's Halberd, similar. Having that tankiness, having the Sange, having the evasion, not great on the hero. But if you desperately need to disarm people, that can be an option as a super late game item. And then Spirit Vessel 2, if there's like a more for some other hero that really needs to have a Spirit Vessel on them, you can go for that in the game, kind of like you can go for Solar Crest. But these are all optional ones that aren't really super core. It's maybe like 5% of games or less that you're going to be buying these items. So those are the situational items, and that's the item build for Rubick support. Then jumping into the skill build, we have the facet that you're going to be going is Arcane Accumulation almost every time, because there's almost always going to be AoE spells that you can steal. But if for some reason there's no good AoE spells to steal, then you can just go for the other facet, which decreases magic cost on stolen spells. That's also good too. It's not like you can go wrong with that one. It's just that in most cases, this one is going to be better. Then level 1, we are skilling Fade Bolt. That's always going to be good for trading, harassing, that kind of stuff. Then having your stun, Telekinesis is also good. You could potentially go Telekinesis level 1 if you are at the rune fight and you just really need that stun, or you want to cliff somebody. That can be a consideration, but I would say most games it's just better to go for Fade Bolt. Then Fade Bolt level 3, and then 1 point in Arcane Supremacy is just good overall, so you have 1 point in your stun, 1 point in the passive, just to amp up your spells and your cast range a little bit. Then we're going to max out Fade Bolt, get your ultimate obviously whenever you can, and then max out Arcane Supremacy. And this is more important actually than your stun, because the spells that you're going to be stealing are actually better than your telekinesis in general, so you want to have more cast range and spell amp on those than getting more levels in the telekinesis. So that's why we're going to max out Arcane Supremacy second, and then finally, obviously, max out telekinesis last, getting your ultimate whenever you can. And then finally, for the talents, we're going to be going for the left talent, but we're only going to be going this actually at level 15 and 16 because we want to max our spells earlier. And this -12 Fade Bolt reduction damage is really not that important. It's not that good. So if you look at the actual skill build on the guide and on most of the guides in the game, you're not going to be getting this until later after you max or put more points into your other abilities. So we can get that on level maybe 15, then 16 actually we can go for this -25% stolen spell cooldown. That's obviously going to be great for the hero because the main focus of the hero is stealing spells. This other lift stun, really not that great. The stolen spells are just going to be better. Fade Bolt cooldown is really good. Again, telekinesis, not a great ability for the hero. So having Fade Bolt, having a nuke, that's going to be awesome. Plus, that debuff is something that you don't really want to underestimate. Even later on in the game, if people can't dispel it, they're going to be doing a lot less damage in fights. Then Spell Amp for stolen spells is just so amazing. Again, telekinesis damage, or land distance, sorry, is not that great. This Spell Amp is just insane. Obviously, you want to take that, especially because the focus, again, is stealing spells and casting them. So that's why you want to get all of those talents. And that, everyone, is the best Rubick support build for patch 7.37e. As always, if you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.